I need to stop making all these obligations. Hello, everybody. It is Dark Conservatarian, and I'm back with another Strike Force news stream. As I said that I would get this episode of Strike Force out of the way on either yesterday or Sunday, but that ended up not happening because I'm a lazy ass. But today I actually managed to conjure up the energy to actually get this done and out of the way. So, last week, you all recall that, last episode, whatever it was, last episode, you all recall that I had read this little article talking about UNICEF warns lockdown could kill more than COVID-19 as model predicts 1.2 million child deaths. If you're interested in this article, it is linked in the description box of the last episode. And you also all recall that I read that little Business Insider article that was kind of shoddy at best because it was relying off of the IMF that there might be reason to suspect that they might be in bed with the Chinese Communist Party or whatever. I don't know, but to sort of make up for that and to add a little point to this article right here, the Great Reversal, as it is being called by The Economist, COVID-19 is undoing years of progress in curbing global poverty. And now, I already pre-read this article because lucky enough, I was able to glitch my way around the freaking paywall that is for this article. And plus, it's a bit of a long one too. That's even more reason to pre-read this article right here. But yeah, it's a very interesting article, and I will have it linked down in the description box below if you all want to get a momentary subscription to The Economist, or if you can glitch yourself around the paywall yourself and read it yourself, then more power to you. But I was just going to review and give my opinion on this. So not only do we have the case that child mortality is rising because of the fact that the lockdowns happen, which is causing some families, particularly in third world countries, to go without food because those families aren't able to work because their job is shut down most of the time forcefully by the government. And also because the infrastructure, the economic infrastructure of those countries is kind of disrupted in one way or another because of the lockdown. I know that, for example, here in the United States, that our infrastructure was disrupted in that local fruit farmers and produce farmers in general ended up having to dump their produce because of the fact that restaurants could not open. Or at least this is something that I heard from a friend of mine, is that local produce farmers here in the United States, they get their fruit. They sell their fruit more to restaurants here in the United States than to grocery stores. The grocery stores get their produce from more particularly, or most of the time anyways, from overseas, from different countries and whatnot. But that aside, that's just an example of how our infrastructure has been disrupted because of the lockdowns and COVID-19 in general. But the title of this article, yeah, it goes, the title is kind of self-explanatory. COVID-19 is undoing years of progress in curbing global poverty, but it's not just the disease itself. It's also the government-initiated lockdowns that is causing all this crap to happen as well. And it just serves as a bit of an example of overly intrusive government, even if it is for a supposedly noble cause. I mean, I would kind of argue that it's not that noble because you are sacrificing the livelihoods of millions, if not, millions, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of citizens for preventing a disease that has a very, very low death rate, to be quite honest with you. And so all these families, particularly in the third world countries, this article does not go talking more specifically about first world countries or the United States or anything like that. It goes talking more about the third world countries. And but basically most of the families, the reason why that poverty is rising is because of the fact that they are forcefully out of work because of government saying, hey, your business has to be shut down in order to prevent this disease and so forth. Oh man, I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but I wish I had more freshly read this article. But basically, these it seems that for the last 10 or 20 years, according to this article, that poverty has been doing like fairly well. Like, and by that, I mean more specifically that poverty has been lowering. It has been going down over the past few years, more specifically. Here, I'm going to close this down. It's been going down for the past 20 years, mostly because people have been finding themselves more income to work with, as the private sector of some of these third world countries are, in fact, improving. But that has a big old monkey wrench thrown in it because of the fact that their governments had to, air quotes, to put in all these lockdowns because of the coronavirus and so forth. Now, I'm going to take the libertarian hat off for a second and put on the utilitarian hat. One could make the point that if they had a more steady welfare system, that they would be a little bit better off. And one could make the point that possibly that is why that in the United States and in first world countries in general, why we aren't suffering as heavily as third world countries from lockdowns. Because of the fact that, typically speaking, first world countries have a more sophisticated welfare system than the third world countries' welfare systems, if any at all, that is. But all the same, it would be better off for the government to not do anything at all than to shut down these businesses without providing any help whatsoever to these people. I mean, they're doing one action that is doing nothing but damaging and doing no action or little to no action that would help them, whilst also telling them to stay home at the same time. It's sad, really, the way that these third world countries are. Now, obviously, the libertarian side of me says that people do not have a right to welfare, and UBI, that's a thing that's suggested by Burger Craig. If that the coronavirus, that the lockdown is evidence as to why we need a UBI, supposedly, is if people are ended up having to go out of work, be it because of these kinds of supposed needed reasons for staying at home, not working, that is evidence as to why the UBI is needed. And he poses the question, he kind of steelmans the argument of, hey, how are we going to pay for this? That libertarians will ask him, hey, how are we going to pay for this? Or libertarians and conservatives, whatnot. But then he sort of gets into this ridiculousness of saying the same way that we pay for the corporate bailouts that the United States and so forth is going for. Problem is, though, is that a lot of libertarians and even small government conservatives are largely against these corporate bailouts at the same time. So they're not approving of either expensive measure of trying to mitigate the damages being caused by the lockdowns and coronavirus itself. But yeah, and the article, I'm not exactly going with a very good flow here on how to explain this article, but basically, the article goes explaining that before the lockdowns, even if a person was to go out of work, they could still rely on their own fellow family members, their own friends and family, their neighbors to help them out when they get into a personal crisis, a personal economic crisis. Except the lockdowns is preventing their neighbors from working as well. So I can't remember what the exact number is of how many people are out of work. The article goes explaining that and further. And like I said, I cannot read this to you because of the paywall. I was lucky enough to read it myself. But yeah, that's part of the story as to how well off that people were actually doing fairly well, relatively speaking, to 20, 30 years ago anyways, in these third world countries. Funny thing about this as well is that tuberculosis is starting to make a comeback for some of these countries. I think India is one of the examples that they pointed out in this article. Yeah, the lockdown apparently is overreaching so much that it is affecting the infrastructure of their healthcare system as well, to where that it's making their tuberculosis prevention methods rather watered down, weakened, for lack of better wording. And at one point in this article, as it goes to citing a whole bunch of studies. And one of the studies that the Economist goes citing, basically, the lockdown is, of course, for preventing people from dying from COVID-19, right? But that one study that I am trying to infer to, it says basically for every one life saved from COVID-19, over 100 will die, have died, or at least projected to die because of hunger or lack of healthcare and other reasons, or just general poverty in general. So it goes showing that the lockdowns, in my personal opinion, by what they're showing here, is damn well not worth it. Not like the article goes explaining like full lip service for all the anti-lockdown people, as in the later paragraphs of the article, it does go trying to, it does end up making some arguments for all the pro-lockdown people. But overall, the stats being provided in this article is just making more of a case for all the anti-lockdown protesters and so forth. Now, how much of this is explicitly because of government is a fair question to ask. Like, would most of these businesses close down anyways if the government wasn't mandating them to close down because of their, their lockdowns and so forth? I don't know, honestly. But I am willing to gamble that at least most of the businesses would not shut down. Yeah, some of them would shut down, and those minority of people that end up unemployed because of the businesses having to do temporary private sector voluntary shutdowns would end up needing some assistance from their neighbor, or would just be in poverty in general. I mean, for example, I can speak for us here in Kansas. Textron Aviation did a 7,000 employee furlough that really took a hit on the economy here in Wichita, Kansas. And last I checked, that was voluntary. So there is a point to be made that some businesses in the third world would probably end up doing their own furloughs or complete and utter shutdowns, even without the government lockdowns. But government, as being shown by all the stats in this article, is obviously not helping in the least bit. As rising hunger, rising poverty, and even a rise in tuberculosis, in some of these cases. Now, taking off the utilitarian hat, I'm going to put back on the libertarian hat. Ultimately, people do not have a right to welfare. But equally speaking, the government has no right to prevent these people from working so that they can provide for their own damn selves. And that's pretty much all I remember that I want to commentate on this article. Like I said at the beginning of this stream, that article is behind a paywall, and so I cannot really show it to y'all right here, right now. I was lucky enough to glitch around the paywall on my phone so that I can read it myself yesterday. So, putting that aside, let's see what the chat looks like. Hello, Meatbags. Meatbags, never seen you before. Welcome to the show. And hello, JC Armitage. All right. So, anyway, moving on to the next story. This is from CNBC, so it is a mainstream news article, but take it with a grain of salt for what it's worth anyways. CNBC, Cuomo says it's shocking. Most new coronavirus hospitalizations are people who had been staying home. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, as we have shown in past episodes of Strike Force, it is being shown that staying at home is just, in fact, weakening your immune system. Hold on a second. Let me just passing out the link to some chats. Okay, there we are. All right. So anyway, so to just add a little bit more a little bit more strength behind the argument that staying at home is just, in fact, not that healthy for people. You have like one of the biggest pro-lockdown politicians in the country right now, Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, kind of espousing rhetoric along those same lines. Most new COVID-19 hospitalizations in New York State are from people who were staying home and not venturing much outside. A shocking finding, Governor Andrew Cuomo said Wednesday. The preliminary data was from 100 New York hospitals involving about 1,000 patients, Cuomo said at his daily briefing. It shows that 66% of new admissions were from people who had largely been sheltering at home. The next highest source of admissions was from nursing homes, 18%. That's not shocking at all, really. I mean, their immune system is kind of weak anyway, so older people would more likely catch this disease. If you notice, 18% of the people came from nursing homes, less than 1% came from jail or prison. But we got to release all those prisoners, everybody, so that we can prevent the spread of COVID-19. And yet, look at this. Less than 1% is coming from jail or prison. That's a funny bit of irony right there. 2% came from the homeless population. That's quite ironic as well, because the homeless population, most of the time, they're not indoors. So, 2% from other congregate facilities, but 66% of the people were at home, which is shocking to us, Cuomo said. This is a surprise. Overwhelmingly, the people were at home, he added. We thought maybe they were taking public transportation. We've taken special precautions on public transportation, but actually no, because these people were literally at home. Cuomo said nearly 84% of the, and hello, Myth Cuttlefish, nice to see you here. Cuomo said nearly 84% of the hospitalized cases were people who were not commuting to work through car services, personal cars, public transit, or walking. He said a majority of those people were either retired or unemployed. Overall, some 73% of the admissions were people over age 51. He said the information shows that those who are hospitalized are predominantly from the downstate area in or around New York City, are not working or traveling, and are not essential employees. He also said a majority of the cases in New York are minorities, with nearly half being African American or Hispanic. And I might want to add, I am basically essential employee myself, so that would probably be part of the reason as to why that I haven't really caught the Rona. Cuomo said state health officials had thought a high percentage of people who were hospitalized would be essential employees like healthcare workers or city staff who are still going to work. And that's not to say that there aren't some anecdotes of people from those sectors still getting sick, but all the same. Much of this comes down to what you do to protect yourself. Everything is closed down. Government has done everything it could. Society has done everything it could. Now it's up to you, Cuomo said. A spokeswoman for Cuomo's office did not immediately respond to CNBC's request for additional comment on the governor's remarks. Cuomo said the state's hospitalization rate has continued to decline, although at a painfully slow rate. He said around 600 infected people were still walking through hospital doors every day, although that number has also declined. While data shows the coronavirus is on the decline in New York, the new survey results appear to clash with Cuomo's prior assurances that isolation can reliably prevent transmission. I was afraid that it was going to infect my family no matter what I did. We're past that, Cuomo said at a press conference on April 13th. If you isolate, if you take the precautions, your family won't get infected. The daily figures, including the number of people who have died from the coronavirus, will probably be much higher than what has been reported, Cuomo said. He said the state has not been fully documenting the at-home deaths that may be attributable to COVID-19. An additional 232 people died from the coronavirus on Tuesday. Yeah, and that's another small piece of evidence right there as to how some of these deaths are getting miscounted, which we'll get more into that in the next article. But anyway. I think that the reality is going to be worse, Cuomo said. End of article. Yeah, it was a fairly short point. It was a fairly short article, straight to the point, and yeah, basically, Andrew Cuomo kind of shoots himself in the foot as far as the measures being taken to prevent the Rona. Unfortunately, it's not working for you, Andrew. So don't be acting like a totalitarian, please. It's turning out fruitless for you. All right. So this is from dailymail.co.uk. How much? I've been going on for 20 minutes now. Colorado health officials claim drunk man died of coronavirus when his blood alcohol content was 7 times the legal limit. Now, this is totally anecdotal, and I'll have to get into an actual article that goes talking about the little almost conspiratorial thing that we had mentioned a couple episodes back of Strike Force, of where essentially they were saying hospitals are being paid supposedly to be false, quite bluntly, falsely marking these deaths as Rona deaths. But this is anecdotal, and so this will do for right now, at least. Colorado state health officials are being challenged by a county coroner for saying that a man who tested positive for the coronavirus succumbed to the deadly infection when an investigation showed he had literally drunk himself to death. It's not a theory, lol. It's in the guidelines, says Myth Cuttlefish. You know what? I'm going to do something that I had meant to do quite a while back. I am going to give a link to my Discord in the chat here. Myth Cuttlefish, are you in my Discord server already? Out of curiosity? If not, then there's the link. I offer it to anybody who goes watching this stream live. But anyway, Montezuma County Coroner George Devers, however you pronounce that, conducted an investigation that determined Sebastian Yellow, 35, had died of acute alcohol poisoning after his blood alcohol content came back at 0.55. That's about 7 times the legal limit. Excuse me. Say again, kiddos are allowed, says Myth Cuttlefish. Are you in my Discord server, Myth Cuttlefish? That's what I was trying to ask. If not, my Discord, the link to my Discord server is right there in the chat for anybody who goes watching this live. No, says Myth Cuttlefish. Okay, well, there's the link all the same. Yellow's body was found by police lying in a public park in Cortez on May 4th. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, however, categorized Yellow's death as being due to COVID-19, and the information was used to update the state's death tally from the virus. Does this article? Okay, yeah, it goes on longer. There have been 20,475 confirmed cases in Colorado of the coronavirus, which has been blamed for 1,062 deaths. Across the country, there have been 1,451,988 confirmed cases of the coronavirus, which has been blamed for 86,719 deaths. And by the way, I just want to say FYI to everybody in the chat and to Myth Cuttlefish, I'm not necessarily denying that hospitals might be getting paid to mark deaths as coronavirus deaths, but ultimately I haven't seen the hard, solid evidence for it. The most that I have seen was a doctor's testimony on a Fox News interview from globalresearch.ca, which that was kind of shoddy sourcing, honestly. And there's a PolitiFact article. And as much as I don't trust PolitiFact, honestly, it's still a piece of evidence that that claim is quite disputed. But to all my audience, like I said, I'm going to have to keep an eye out on that particular little factoid, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can about that. And you won't because you're not medical personnel, says Myth Cuttlefish. Okay. The coroner's challenge of how Yellow's death was blamed on the coronavirus when in fact he died from drinking comes as the state has come under scrutiny for reclassifying deaths contrary to what doctors already have determined. Excuse me. An investigation found state health officials reclassified 3 deaths at a Centennial nursing home as COVID-19 deaths after attending doctors ruled they were not related to coronavirus, reports KCNC. Each of the dead residents had tested positive for the coronavirus, but their passing was blamed on other causes by the physicians, KCNC, which conducted the investigation, reports. The state's official tally then increased the number of coronavirus deaths at the Summerlin Glen facility from 4 to 7, based on the disputed deaths. On Thursday, Representative Mark Baisley, a Republican representing Douglas and Teller counties, wrote to District Attorney George Brockler of the 18th Judicial Court, calling for a criminal investigation into the reclassification of the deaths, as well as criminal charges against State Health Department's Director Jill Ryan. Baisley charged in a letter to Brockler, that the reclassifications were deliberate acts of certificate falsification. I believe these acts of falsely altering death certificates to be criminal acts of tremendous concern to you and my constituents. I hereby request that you investigate this matter with the intent of bringing criminal charges against Jill Ryan. At an April 7 news conference, Dr. Deborah Birx of President Donald Trump's coronavirus task force compared how other countries classify the deaths to U.S. reporting. There are other countries that if you had a pre-existing condition and let's say the virus caused you to go to the ICU and then have a heart or a kidney problem, some countries are recording that as a heart issue or kidney issue and not a COVID-19 death, Birx first said. Interesting. I'll have to definitely digest that little piece of information. It'll take me a little bit, but that is very interesting. You cannot solely blame it on heart or kidney, nor can you solely blame it on COVID-19 at the same time. It seems to be a combination of factors. Although one could say that they would still be alive, having to fight with their heart and kidney problems, granted, but still be alive nonetheless if COVID-19 wasn't around and about. Right now, if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as a COVID-19 death, she added about the U.S. reporting. If someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as, let me reread that, everybody. Right now, if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as a COVID-19 death, she added about the U.S. reporting. Oh, God, that statement left some in the medical profession questioning whether COVID-19 data will be skewed when counting the actual number of people who died from the virus. End of article. You think? You think? You think? I mean, what if somebody gets shot and they ended up bleeding to death, but they had COVID-19 at the time? So therefore, I guess that must mean that it was a COVID-19 caused death, right, folks? I would say that is an outright bullshit way of measuring this, and it's just evidence to the whole narrative that some of these stats are in fact skewed. I mean, not only was it looking at things on the anecdotal level of a drunk guy dying of alcohol poisoning being counted as a COVID-19 death, but also looking at things on the more national scale from a health official. So, this is from the New York Post. And hello, Red Feather, how are you doing? Still, nobody else has joined me on this episode of Strike Force. Nobody in the chat, in the hangout, folks. But anyway, so... folks, you know that during this whole time that I have generally been an optimist in regards of the Rona itself, like how people react to the Rona, what actions we take in government because of the Rona. That's a different story entirely. But the disease itself and the stats behind the disease, you know that I have generally been a bit of an optimist in regards to that. But to play fairness to all the people who are a little bit more pessimistic about this, I came across this article from the New York Post saying second coronavirus wave could be deadlier, CDC chief warns. And so New York Post, I don't think they're not exactly uncredible. I think they're a little bit left leaning, but they're not like BuzzFeed or PolitiFact, let's say, for example, folks. And so I thought, for the sake of unbiasedness, let's go ahead and read this. Doing okay. How are you, Dark Conscious Red Feather? I'm doing all right. Did not get decent enough sleep last night, but I'm fine. The head of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention warned Tuesday that a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic expected this winter could be deadlier than the current pandemic. Expected this winter. Okay, so it's at least going to be quite a few months away before this becomes anything of a fear, but let's read this to see what he has to say. There's a possibility that the assault of the virus on our nation next winter will actually be even more difficult than the one we just went through, CDC. Oh, I just got the little notification. Rational Outlaws join. His devices are connecting. And hello, Rash.
Hey, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Cool. The funny thing about whenever you try to join my call is that for some reason it takes a longer time for your devices to connect than any of the other co-hosts I have on. It's funny. So, Rational Outlaw, what do you have to say about the predictions of there being a second wave before I go any further in this article here?
Second wave for what?
The Rona.
Oh, the virus.
Although I already said the forbidden C word myself earlier on this stream, so it doesn't matter at this point. But
from what I've heard, there's a possibility that could happen within like the fall or winter.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the colder season, that it's possible.
Right. And hello, Mikhail the Stray Cat in the chat. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any data myself, any data or information myself to think either way in regards of a second wave. Although I would think that if there is a second wave to happen, that I don't really think that it's worth causing a mass lockdown. Like I read earlier, I read yesterday, but presented earlier on this stream, COVID-19 is undoing years of progress in curbing global poverty. That's more affecting the third world than it is the United States, but all the same. And where was I at? I'm just going to start over from this paragraph. There's a possibility that the assault of the virus on our nation next winter will actually be even more difficult than the one we just went through, CDC Director. Notifications there, folks. CDC Director Robert Redfield told the Washington Post, saying it would likely coincide with peak flu season. And when I've said this to others, they kind of put their head back. They don't understand what I mean. 2 simultaneous outbreaks of respiratory infections would dramatically strain the healthcare system, he said. The first wave of COVID-19, the disease caused by the coronavirus, has already killed more than 42,000 Americans. Questionable, especially looking back on this last article, as to how many of those are actually caused by COVID-19. But anyway, I digress. Redfield said federal and state officials need to use the coming months to prepare for a worst-case scenario. As stay-at-home orders are lifted, officials need to stress the importance of social distancing and hand washing, he said. Asked about protests against stay-at-home orders and some residents' demands that states be liberated from restrictions, an effort President Trump backed on Twitter, Redfield declared it's not helpful. Well, at least you aren't being as toxic as Foamy the Squirrel in response to all the anti-lockdown protesters, and that's the end of that article. So what do you have to say in regards of all this information, Rash? I mean, if you have been watching the stream at all?
No, I haven't, because I've been actually mowing my lawn, so.
I see.
I just saw the notification. I don't get any notifications on my phone through all the apps anymore for whatever dumb reason.
Ah,
Like seriously, like my phone will not tell me when I've gotten a message from Discord or anything. So I was really late to receiving all your messages.
no, it's all good. Hello, sent 1000 and Scorch in the chat. What was I gonna? So, yeah, the last few articles that I have been, I'm just going to read the titles of the articles, and you give your commentary on each individual subject if you'd like, Rash. The first one was talking about the global poverty, the rising global poverty because of not only just the disease itself, but the lockdowns being instigated because of the disease, in the name of the disease, anyways. The second one was Cuomo saying that it's shocking that most new coronavirus hospitalizations are people who had been staying home. And this one, Colorado health officials claimed drunk man died of coronavirus when his blood alcohol content was 7 times the legal limit, showing as to how that some of these deaths, a lot of these deaths are being miscounted as Rona deaths. And then that last one was second coronavirus wave could be deadlier, CDC chief warns. Rash? Hello? Rational Outlaw? Did we lose Rational Outlaw? Did he ended up walking away from his computer or whatnot?
Sorry, my parents were calling for me.
Oh, it's you mama's boy. No. I'm joking on that front.
No, I can't afford my own house since I don't work currently and everything.
Oh, damn. Oh, sorry that I asked.
It's okay. There's not a problem. I've just finished school just this last month, so now I'm all done with school, and now I just need to work on getting money. Although most of that's going to have to happen after California reopens.
Right. Cuomo, who the hell is that? Says sent 1000. And Mikhail says Fresno's brother. I think what he meant to say was Fredo's brother. Yeah, as he said it a little bit later. Sorry, Fredo. LOL. Fredo sounds like a dog. You're not wrong, sent 1000. Fredo does sound like the name of a dog, honestly. But yeah, was you here when I was reviewing all those article titles, Rash?
For this stream, no.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to read them again, I guess. Give your commentary on each subject as you please. The first article that I got reading was COVID-19 is undoing years of progress in curbing global poverty. Not just the disease itself, but also the lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
The second one was Cuomo saying, basically admitting that staying inside is weakening people's immune systems. Cuomo says it's shocking most new coronavirus hospitalizations are people who had been staying home. And the Daily Mail article there was talking about as to how that some of these deaths are being miscounted as COVID-19 deaths. Colorado health officials claimed drunk man died of coronavirus when his blood alcohol content was 7 times the legal limit.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say that this coronavirus, it has at least got all of my friends on Facebook a whole lot more politically active than before. I'm going to be honest, the news hasn't been that lively with the few months before coronavirus had actually hit the United States. I mean, there's all the fears of Iran having World War III with Iran and whatnot. But
quite frankly, I found that ridiculous because Iran would never want to go to war with the United States.
Yeah. And my suspicions personally was that at worst, it would end up to be another Bush's Iraq,
Mm-hmm.
It would be Trump's version of Iraq, essentially. At worst. At best, there would be no war, and lo and behold, no war. Just ended up killing the piece of shit that was causing us trouble, that being Soleimani himself. But aside from that, there haven't been a whole lot of stories. But coronavirus, I mean, war aside, there's like a whole bunch of other issues that have been stemming from this issue alone, like all the abortion clinics still continuing their businesses, despite the fact that churches are mandated to shut down, for example. Businesses, the government getting increasingly tyrannical with businesses, Trump's executive orders, forceful lockdowns. There was a salon owner down in Texas who had got arrested for trying to open up her salon.
I will say, though, that it seems most of the authoritarian measures are coming from state and local governments rather than the federal. Although there is some stuff that I strongly disagree that happened on the federal level, but it seems to be mostly at the state and local level.
But as Foamy the Squirrel would say, no, it is not the federal government, you fucking morons! It's state and local governments! And that guy. Have you seen that video of mine, by the way?
I think I saw a little bit of it.
Oh, watch it the rest of the way. It's entertaining.
I've actually watched a few of Foamy the Squirrel's videos before previously. He's mostly a comedy channel.
All right.
Although he has done some social commentary on some things.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that he's agreeable on some things, but lately, in regards to the coronavirus, he's been absolutely, utterly toxic. It seems.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's questionable as to how much of it is him like putting on his act. And I even like said in my response video to him, like, if he is not acting on this line of saying that if y'all die, I'm fine with it. I would be glad, in fact, that you die. If that wasn't him acting, then the guy behind Foamy is an utter psychopath. And Sent 1000 kind of articulates on that point as well. The poor excuse of an actor. Yeah, exactly, Sent 1000. Oh, I can't wait for the next Foamy annihilation, LOL. Destroy the rabid squirrel, says Mikhail.
Probably that won't happen because usually he doesn't say things that are controversial to the right. Like he's probably a centrist, I would say, the guy.
Right. Not too controversial to the right. Although there was one video that Mikhail had shared in one of our Twitter group chats talking about as to how he's basically bitching about sneak peeks and advertisements being put in theaters nowadays. And he like basically did a follow-up on his pandemic commentaries. Basically having a meltdown at the fact that there would be people daring to speak out and fight against the lockdowns. When libertarians rise up, the rabid squirrel melts down. But
well, he's not my favorite squirrel anyways. I already have a favorite squirrel.
Who would that be? Is it one of your furry friends?
He's not a furry, but he has a squirrel avatar. Skaggles the squirrel. I don't know if you know of Skaggles.
Skaggles the squirrel. I might have vaguely heard of him.
He does animation shorts.
Okay, Skaggles the squirrel. I might have to look it up sometime after this. But what was I gonna? Anyway, so the next article, this is from Huffington Post, actually, and Huffington Post typically isn't that reliable because for the most part, they're a blogging site. But this was an interesting read, at least, and I thought we'd at least give it a fair shake. So, anyway, I teach at Oxford, but I don't want it to win the coronavirus vaccine race. The story will be clear. China once again has unleashed a threat to civilization, but the best brains of the UK have saved the world, Dr. Emily Cousins writes. Emily Cousins being the writer of this particular article.
Oddly, that sounds sort of stuck up, but also not stuck up at the exact same time. That first paragraph you read.
Huffing paint post, says Mikhail. Good one, Mikhail. And hello, Doomer in the chat. How are you doing, buddy? But anyway, in need of a question for your next Zoom pub quiz, here's one. We're getting used to seeing either Boris Johnson, Dominic Raab, Matt Hancock, Robert Jenrick, Rishi Sunak, or Michael Gove wheeled out onto our screens at 5 p.m. But why is Jenrick the odd one out? The answer: he's the only one that didn't go to Oxford. He went to Cambridge. Oxford, that symbol of British excellence, producing the finest minds in the world, and, if this week's news is anything to go by, leading the race to develop a vaccine against coronavirus. That's interesting. Surely I should be proud that the institution I've spent a decade studying and subsequently teaching at could be the first to develop the vaccine. Not only proud, but hopeful and excited. My 72-year-old dad is usually a highly social and active man. However, he lives on his own in a very rural village and is becoming increasingly worried that he won't be able to return to his usual ways for years until such a vaccine is developed. So why was my initial relief at hearing Oxford and Imperial are racing away to develop the vaccine followed by worry? Let's suppose that Oxford does develop the first vaccine. What happens next? Okay, I just got a new person to come in. Is it Loudmouth or S-Man? And hello, S-Man Speaks.
Hey, how's it going, guys? I finally got back from East Carbon and got back from a graduation party. How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing pretty good. I did not get a whole lot of decent sleep last night, but other than that, I am doing peachy.
That's good. And especially I'm just enjoying getting ready for June, and I'm so glad that I haven't watched the news for most of the day because there are people I know who are extremely pissed right now with the stories of police brutality they saw today, and I don't blame them. I'm not saying ACAB, but there are times it's almost you kind of lose some faith and you almost wanting to say ACAB, but I'm just on the verge right there.
Have you seen episode, I think it's 159 of Strike Force?
I think I saw like the first 10-ish minutes as I got ready for work around the time that happened.
Talking about Officer Anderson?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and get to the rest of it because I've been trying to catch up with a number of things, but have you guys know the video of it I first saw today of where a police officer had his knee on the neck of this black guy who was stopping, and it was clearly excessive force, and it's like how that's why
pictures. I've seen a picture of that. What was it?
Minneapolis, Minnesota. White police officer has his knee on the neck of a black man. He was pinned to the ground, and that is clearly excessive force. His name was George Floyd. This is all public, so there's no doxing. I promise you that. But yeah, this is why you'll never see me back the blue. I'll never be a part of the Blue Lives Matter crowd because of shit like this. I'm not saying all cops are bad, but I'm sorry. But if you see this enough times, and enough people are just going to start outright saying every last one of them are corrupt motherfuckers, and they're going to be viewed the same way politicians are.
I would say Blue Lives Matter in the manner that we shouldn't be like generally executing them. Like that's another thing that the episode 159 of Strike First goes later into reviewing a video of people just basically indiscriminately executing cops, even for those who go pulling you over for a speeding ticket.
I think the main problem I have with the whole Blue Lives Matter movement is that a lot of it is used to be not just like being respectful to cops, but actually going above and beyond that and almost worshiping them as like a cult worship, that like just so much, I don't know, just praise in the sense that they view them as complete heroes and they can do nothing wrong. Kind of
yeah, and the thing that frustrates me the most with the Blue Lives Matter crowd it was almost just seemed like it was created in response to the Black Lives Matter people, and I've been critical of groups of how they
Right.
protest, but the thing that annoyed me with it's like, if you want cops to be respected, you got to tell them to stop shooting black kids, for God's sake. If you're so afraid for your life, even though you have a gun, something tells me you should not be having the gun. Like, you voluntarily give it up. I'm not going to take it from you. But either quit your job or grow a pair is what I would say to those when they constantly say I was afraid for my life.
Mm.
It gets rather tiresome, and that's why I don't blame people like Brandon, who outright hate the police, because they always get away with it. Like when I can't remember what his name was. I think it was Eric Garner, was choked to death by the police. How could anyone justify it? Sure, he could have. He didn't have to talk back, but that's not an excuse for him being choked to death.
Officer Yanis in the Philando Castile shooting, he was fired for it, and they did. It wasn't the appropriate punishment. Granted, like the full appropriate punishment would have like been jail time for manslaughter at least. And I forget this latest case, the one up in Minneapolis. Did that result in a death or just a choking?
I'm pretty certain he died. Let me go back and find it.
I think I might have vaguely remembered there being that being like a little factoid of it, that he died ultimately, and yeah, that the guy that the police should have like got jail time for manslaughter, but at least they did get fired, so it's not like they're getting.
I mean, fired
getting away completely scot free. What do you say, Rash?
I was saying being fired is like the bare minimum. I think that's barely anything.
Yeah,
I think there should be some form of greater punishment. And quite frankly, I think police officers should be held to a greater responsibility because of their position. Sort of like how we hold doctors and lawyers at a greater responsibility if they make a mistake in their field. If it's grossly negligent, even, we hold them more greatly responsible.
Red Feather, you know what? Maybe I should have prepared an article talking about the case up in Minneapolis.
The only people who get away with worse about doing their job terribly, worse than police officers, would probably be only the news media, who get away with everything because they have all the legal protections.
He died and 4 officers got fired, says Red Feather in the chat.
The officer that killed him should be charged with second-degree murder at minimum, because he should have known that what he was doing was causing this guy incredible suffering, and it was going to risk killing him. Hello, Mikhail the stray cat. And
are we talking about the bystander cop, or are we talking about the cop that you're talking about?
The cop who had his knee on the guy.
Okay, yeah.
That guy should be charged with second-degree murder at minimum, and I'd say even intentional homicide at maximum, because at some point he had to have known that what he was doing was risking killing him.
What would you say up for the bystander cop? Because it was also the bystander cop who could have done something.
I'd say he should be charged with voluntary manslaughter at minimum, because he had the ability to stop what was going on. And whenever cops do the right thing and try to stop a bad cop, they get fired or they get completely marginalized out of their field. And that's why,
like, if I recall, there is a mentality in which, like, if a cop tells on another cop, they're outcasted in a sense by the whole cop community or whatever. Which I find completely retarded.
How Officer Anderson got fired for speaking out against the unconstitutional action being taken by police.
That was
absolute
mentality
shit.
In which these people say that you cannot tell on us. If you tell on another member, you're not part of our group. It's a complete cult mentality. With a lot of these cops.
Being like a high school clique.
In a sense.
Yeah, except in this case, the bully ended up killing the victim, or the bullied, I'd say. But the thing that just aggravates me is we see this happen time and time again, and sometimes they will get a punishment, but it was nothing to where they deserved it. Like the cop in South Carolina, I don't remember what the guy's name was who died, but that was clear. The guy was running for his life. The cop had no justification in shooting him in the back 5 times. I thought he would deserve a death sentence for first-degree murder, having killed a man who was running from him, not at him. And then he planted a taser on him. He was clearly going to tamper with evidence and completely do everything he could to make it look like the guy that he just murdered was in the wrong, even though he, even if he ran away from the cop, even because I don't know if I would. If I know the cop's going to hurt me and nothing I'm doing is wrong and the cop is going to hurt me no matter what, yeah, I'm going to make a run for it because I find myself increasingly not trusting police. Like I'll walk down the street and I know I'm doing nothing wrong, but they just have this menacing look in their eyes where they look like they're wanting to do something wrong they know is totally illegal. And that's why I don't blame people who say all cops are bastards. And I think that if cops want to have their image improved, they have to do something about it. Instead of just saying, "Oh, back the blue, man. I stand with the police." It's like, well, then you're just a goddamn bootlicker.
Well, I think there's also need to be change in like how is it that our cops charged? Is it the same way as other people who get charged with murder, or is it differently? I don't know how charged.
Sometimes, depending on the state, they use different types of ways of stating the charge. In my state, usually when someone is charged with a severe crime of murder, it's called aggravated murder, and they could be sentenced to death. In some cases, it's like felony manslaughter. And I'd say that it is important that we that's why I'm a full endorser of mandatory body cams for police. And for every time they pull out a weapon of any kind, if it's pepper spray,
are they held by a jury or is it just a judge? I didn't know if that was any.
Usually depends on the state. In some courtrooms in Texas, they don't have a jury box, so you'd be tried by a judge. In other states, it can be you can choose if it's by a judge or a jury, even though the Constitution mentions you have the right to a trial by a jury, but I guess you could waive that if you'd like. But there was a case a few years ago, I think it was in Salt Lake County. This man was charged with second-degree manslaughter when he killed a woman who was in her car. He was on her left side, and he shot into her car repeatedly as I think she was trying to get away from him in the car. He said he was fearing for her life, but she was facing he was on her left sideways. And unless she was driving at him, then like if she's driving at if you're a cop and someone's driving at you with their car and you shoot them, okay, that's clearly justified. But if they're driving away from you and you shoot them, I'd have to say that's unjustified. If they have kidnapped somebody and you can ensure you're going to shoot at them and not kill the innocent, okay, fine.
What do you think of the Michael Brown case that happened? Wow, that was freaking 4 or 5 years ago.
6 years ago. Okay, it was difficult. At the time thought the cop was in the right, but I'm sorry, but I think sometimes, and I understand that a police officer's job is not easy, but I think that I think there was a lot of, if you're being aggressive towards the police officer, that's not going to help you. Like, don't fight with the cop. That's going to get you shot. But here's what I would do. I just run from them because there's no justification for shooting at someone if they're running away from you.
Personally, I think the shooting was somewhat justified, at least because the guy was like bigger than Officer What's His Face, and was also like charging at him.
Well, if someone's charging at you, that's understandable. Oh, I don't know if you guys heard about this because I don't know about you guys, but I really closely followed police brutality cases in 2014 because I was a major crime hawk. Oh yes, the Brown case was in 2014, my friends. It feels so long ago. Yes, it happened on August 9th, 2014. He was 18 years old, and the officer in question, his name was Darren Wilson. This was in Ferguson, Missouri.
Right.
Officer Darren Wilson. And, did you guys, there was this bank robbery in 2014. The police fired over 600 rounds at an SUV with 3 hostages. I think at least the bad guys in question, a few of them died, but other.
Wait, are you talking about a totally different story now?
Yeah, because I just remembered it when I said, if you're shooting at a car, like if you're trying to stop a kidnapper, but you can ensure that you're not gonna hit the hostages.
This was very recently, wasn't it?
No, it was also in 2014. 2014 was a very bizarre and very depressing year because of how crazy the world was with Ebola and ISIS and um, all these cases of foreign and domestic insanity. This was in Stockton, California, by the way.
And ironically, 2014 was a good year for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. This was in I think. Oh wait, okay. That North Hollywood. That was 1997. But the point is, the police need to be held more accountable for what they're doing. And when you see, and the reason why you see people say pigs in a blanket frying like bacon is because they understand, yeah, it's inflammatory, but if you want people to pay attention to something you're really interested in, being inflammatory, they've seen has been rather effective at getting people to listen when they would just ignore it under all other circumstances.
All right, so like to put a little bow top on this, I am of the opinion # not all cops in regards of how good or bad that.
Well, I think we all agree that it's not all cops, but there are some bad apples, and a lot of those bad apples get away with it.
Well, I'm just kind of
problem is the fact there are a few cops that are able to get away with it. I think that is the main problem. Not so much that there's a whole massive amount of bad cops, so much as there's one, the cult mentality, and two, that there are away with these crimes.
I'm just saying that, like, in response to the ACAB crowd, like in general. But and also, I would like to add, like, if you like go on a video response or anything like that, talking about police again, you might want to show that side of yourself more rash. Talking about your criticisms with the Blue Lives Matter or Thin Blue Line crowd, who
oh, I have talked about this. I mean, I don't know if you saw my responses to like Filthy Heretic and also my article that I've written about the whole Blue Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter movement, and also the anti-cop movement.
I guess I don't remember it that well. My bad. But yeah, and I will say that in regards of the Minneapolis case, it seems, generally speaking, anyways, I will have to like get into an article talking about it. But generally speaking, it seems that the case is cop in the wrong. But
yeah.
So but anyway, I want to like continue on this article just to finish it up, and then we can like talk about whatever important stuff is going on in the world for a little while longer.
Yeah.
So, let's suppose that Oxford does develop the first vaccine. What happens next? David Heyman, an infectious disease specialist at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, who heads a panel that advises the World Health Organization, who on coronavirus, says that there could be a production shortage. Researchers have also warned that this will lead to rich countries hoarding supplies. We were too late when it came to stockpiling PPE, but we won't be caught out again. The vaccine developed by our finest brains is ours, and it will be Britons who are prioritized for protection. If there is enough vaccine to go around, the UK will be the world's savior. We'll quickly forget the devastating delay of the UK government to take action, as Boris Johnson proudly safeguarded British institutions like individual liberty and the pub over lives. Except it doesn't have that high of a death rate. So
what does?
The Rona.
I mean, 100,000 people dying in the United States. I honestly don't care if it's a drop in the bucket or not. I mean, that's still kind of a big deal.
It's like a 2% death rate.
But in terms of the rest of the but in terms of the rest of the world, though, with all their deaths combined, I mean, I think we're still in the at least top 3 or top 5 at minimum.
Well, it depends. If you include New York, then yeah. But if you like exclude like New York, we're really pretty low on that list.
Yeah, I mean, like,
but did really shitty on that job, mostly because of
Governor Cuomo should forever be remembered for his disastrous handling of nursing homes. And there's a sign in New York. If you go to New York State, you might see a sign that says Governor Cuomo killed my mom or something. And I'm like, damn, Imagine being Governor Cuomo and reading that.
Yeah, that guy utterly did retarded things with handling the whole situation.
And keep in mind, let's not forget that it may, even if it's just New York and California and other densely populated areas, that they did show that was not a good strategy of thinking, because a lot of rural areas did get hit by the COVID-19. They weren't necessarily above the fray there, but I do hope that this ends the coronavirus, even if it never truly goes away, hopefully it subsides big time.
Well, my main thing is I hope that this helps wake people up to the possibility of your government being really authoritarian. I hope that we at least get that.
Yeah, I'm kind of afraid that Governor Whitmer is going to be on the ticket into this election, in November's election. I really hope, for the love of God, don't have her as VP, because I'm sorry. Every time I talk with these people, how on earth do you not see mayors and governors overstepping their authority? Even if legally what they're doing is not illegal, their actions still should be questioned in terms of, yeah, the law may say it's okay, but the law is not always the arbiter of what's right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course. I also want to point back to the Economist article that I was pointing out here earlier. Unfortunately, I cannot scroll down to where it is because of the freaking paywall that the Economist put on here. But I was able to read it myself. Like, I was able to glitch around the paywall on my phone, at least, and read the article.
Apparently, you read The Economist? The Economist is such trash.
You could also try using
what do you mean, The Economist?
Google Incognito. It's one way you can get around a lot of paywalls.
Yeah, that's what I do with the New York Times, but I'm just kind of joking with you. But The Economist, they've printed some stupid articles in the past.
And to be honest, all of the legacy media is pretty shitty.
Politico has written some very stupid posts. I'll tell you. The
Economist, as relatively speaking, to say Washington Post or PolitiFact or Fox News or Breitbart is not as bad. I mean, in my observation of reading them. I mean, and honestly, they're not completely one-sided in that article, but I was trying to get at, they're going citing a study that for every COVID-19 death prevented, that it is projected that, or maybe even already happened, that over 100 people did or are about to die because of poverty induced by their lockdowns, by these third world countries' own lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of starkly awakening for as far as how not only just authoritarian and hurtful to liberty that these things are, but in a practical utilitarian side of things is pretty bad. So we'll forget the lessons that the pandemic has taught us so far, that the UK and the US are in fact not exceptions at the global stage, that we are not only vulnerable, but can also afford to learn lessons from countries regardless of whether we have a special relationship with them, such as South Korea. I'll have to look more into South Korea, although I vaguely heard that their people were not as fear-mongered or weren't as fearful of it as much to want to buy out all the toilet paper in the stores. That being white, male, and Oxford educated may not be the only criteria for effective leadership. Wait, what? Okay, now I'm starting to get the feeling of the angle from this particular HuffPo writer right here. The countries whose responses have been most widely praised, Germany and New Zealand among others, are all led by women.
I will have to say, though, that according to my BF, he says that it might not be necessarily so great with Germany in the fact that they actually might be lying about their numbers.
Honestly, I am skeptical of the numbers when it comes to the deaths, more in particular, as we have read from that Daily Mail article a little bit earlier. And among other articles I've read of how that they are counting deaths without a confirmed test even. Not only are people dying with COVID-19, but not because of COVID-19, but they're dying only under the suspicion.
I'm not even talking about it them overstating the numbers. In fact, talking about like from what he has told me, he believes that from what he's researched on this is that they actually might be undercounting their numbers in Germany.
Undercounting?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like how Loudmouth has high suspicions that China is doing the same?
Yeah.
China. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I don't trust usually China on anything. Like, they're a currency manipulator, and it's an authoritarian regime in China. So I don't blame people for not trusting a word that comes out of Xi Jinping's mouth.
All right. So I'm continuing on. The developments made by researchers at Oxford have been an inspiration among the research community. Whilst China has faced lots of questions about its sharing of information politically, according to Laura Spinney, the unprecedented speed of virus development so far is thanks in large part to early Chinese efforts to sequence the genetic material of SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. China shared that sequence in early January, allowing research groups around the world to grow the live virus and study how it invades human cells and makes people sick. Okay, well, that's something that I haven't heard, but care to mention about how China has been like suppressing their information, like keeping people silent to try and, warn of the virus? Just saying. Dr. Klaus Kirchhell, if that's how you pronounce it, fellow of the Research and Policy Unit at the Oxford Martin School, confirms that there has been a radical sharing of information and a very rapid sequencing of the pathogen's genetic code. It is clear, then, that international cooperation saves lives. But do our Oxford-educated leaders think like this? Coronavirus is a global pandemic. Yet, rather than motivating the UK to take a proud role at the global stage, as leaders like Macron have urged, the UK is increasingly resorting to patriotism in response. Well,
I mean, a lot of people have been saying that that the coronavirus has proved globalism is bad and that nationalism is good. And that they're arguing that this is why closing the borders is a good idea, even though that does not actually change exactly preventing these types of pandemics from happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I will say in response to this article writer, like, I can't really blame the UK for at least prioritizing their own citizens. I mean, I don't know if I would do any different if I was like a leader of the US. I mean, in my job, I am a leader of the US first and foremost, and a leader of the world. I don't even know if I would say second, but it just takes priority after my own country's citizens if I was a leader of a given country.
Yeah,
politician of any kind.
Yeah, if Dark Khan was president, I would hope he'd put the American people first, because
what, America first? Are you saying that Nick Fuentes is right? I'm joking. I'm joking.
Nick Fuentes, the only thing he's been correct on is pointing out about how Charlie Green is a total cuck for Israel. Like if you love Israel, fine.
Charlie Green? Did you mean Charlie Kirk?
Charlie, oh fuck! I'm sorry, Charlie. I meant Charlie Kirk, not Green.
Sorry to all the Charlie Greens.
Sorry, Charlie. But yeah, Charlie Kirk is a total bootlicker for Israel. Actually, they can do no wrong. And Nick Fuentes, as stupid as he is, he is a broken clock when he points out that when Charlie Kirk says no more funding for the EU or something like that, and he's like, retweet if you think that there should be no more money for Israel. And I'm like, fuck, I wish he didn't block me because I probably would have retweeted that for the first and only time ever.
I will say, like, in preferences, as many problems that Charlie Kirk has, I still find him considerably better than Nick Fuentes.
Oh no, you're not wrong at all, but
he's at least not as overtly hateful as Nick Fuentes shows himself to be.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie Kirk is a total bastard, but he's definitely
Probably mostly a
preferable compared
grifter,
to.
really, it seems like.
Oh
What
yeah,
do you say, Raj?
From what I can tell, he
uh,
seems to be a bit of a grifter.
oh, he is a total grifter. I mean, the guy
I would
was like,
say Owens is worse, personally.
yeah, well, I'd say she's worse among them, but with Charlie Kirk, I mean, the guy was acting like Donald Trump was very bad, and um, yeah, you know what? I'm
Wait,
not also
what?
at the start of the Charlie Greens. Well, Charlie Kirk was acting like very upset when Donald Trump was nominated for president, and then just before Trump was
Hmm.
inaugurated, he said, "And it begins." Candace Owens was apparently the stereotypical liberal before becoming a total like magatard, leading the most pointless movement ever called Blexit, because there's no way Donald Trump's winning the black vote at all, and these people who keep saying red wave, are just there's nothing backing up that reality. But yeah. Also,
I don't know. Well, I don't know if it's an outright red wave. Although Biden did not exactly help himself by saying if you vote for anyone but me, you're not black.
I mean, Biden was a fucking idiot for saying that, but I still have a feeling they're going to vote for him just because he's the Democratic nominee and they don't like Donald Trump. And let's keep in mind. Oh, by the way, guys, it's a great feeling to have 1,000 followers on Twitter. So thank you everyone for who followed me on Twitter, as I just checked on Social Blade. But yeah, Biden's an idiot.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, but Biden is basically begging the American people to vote for Trump for a second term. Like, who knew that his campaign slogan would be Biden's basically just wearing the MAGA hat at the point. I'm going to Google that. If Biden wearing a MAGA hat, Biden.
So apparently you're no longer in support of Joe Biden.
I only supported him in a binary contest, and this was well before the accusations of sexual misconduct pop up. After that, I was like, no. I also said that I will only support Joe Biden if the Libertarians picked a shitty candidate, and they picked a really good candidate. I'm fully supporting Joe Jorgensen to be president of the United States, and
my mistake then.
By the way, I'm gonna have to throw some shade though at the libertarians for how many actually voted for the guy who wears a boot on his head.
I mean, the guy was just a protest candidate from what I could see.
I know, but still, it's just you kind of make the party just if you want it to be taken seriously, you got to act seriously.
It's about as ridiculous. Okay, here it is, folks. It's about as ridiculous as the one person that ended up arriving on the stage naked.
Yeah.
I thought that was a libertarian socialist, if I'm not mistaken. But
like a libertarian party at town hall or something. If I recall correctly.
Yeah, if the Libertarian Party wants to fix its image, it's got to get rid of the crazies. It's got to
get rid of all the Democrat lights like Gary Johnson.
Well, yes, that, but also the fact that it's got to just distance from the crazies or people who act crazy or the trolls or whatever it be.
Keep them.
Act serious and be serious, because if you want to be taken seriously, you got to act and show that you're serious. Also,
let's not forget that Bill Weld near the general election on election day, he was kind of giving a hint that he was basically very openly supporting Hillary Clinton to win the presidential election, and that didn't work out too well. But it's like, wow, buddy, thanks a lot for and even Johnson. Even Johnson was saying he was giving pleasantries to Secretary Clinton, and it's like, you're running against this person. Why are you doing that?
Anyways, I think after Trump's presidency is over, because I'm pretty sure he's going to win the nomination.
He's already won the nomination.
But let's just say he does.
You meant the election?
Sorry, yeah, the election I meant. Wins the second.
Yeah, two different things.
I would say that after that is perhaps the best time the Libertarian Party has a chance of gaining a momentum again, I think.
Yeah.
After this cult of Trumpianism is dead because he can no longer run.
Yeah, and at that point you have you have the ability, because it's an open seat once again, like it was in 2016. It's an open seat. There's no incumbent on the ticket, and Ted Cruz, I think, he'll probably run in 2024 and lose the election, pretty badly to whomever it runs.
I don't think the Libertarian Party can win an election in 2024, but I think they have a possible chance. If they handle it right, they could perhaps maybe, if they really try hard, they could perhaps maybe gain one electoral vote, or maybe a couple electoral votes, or at least gain a huge percentage of the popular vote.
Imagine if Dwayne Johnson ran a third party.
I'd want to see that happen because.
Anyway, sorry, I want to finish off this article and then we'll talk about other stuff. This wartime rhetoric is useful in instilling a sense that this is a moment when individuals need to make sacrifices and put the country first. Well, technically, we are in kind of a war, not like a bloody hot war with China, but it's kind of tumultuous times almost along those lines. In fact, I would almost take a gander to say that I don't know if like an actual conventional large-scale war along the same lines of World War I or II will ever happen like within modern society. I mean, and if it did, it would involve nukes, and then that would be the end of civilization. But outside of nukes, no war is going to be fought in conventional means between major superpowers. But I digress. But this time, the enemy is not a nation; it is a microbe. And the one,
it's a what?
It's a microbe. It is a microbe. The virus, referring to the virus. I mean, and a certain party that just let it happen, aka the Chinese Communist Party. Fuck the CCP, by the way, y'all. So yes. Why do our collective solidarities end at the border? The race is on, and researchers at Oxford are doing vital, life-saving work. But races have winners and losers. If my university is the first to develop the vaccine, I'm worried that it will be used, as it has been in the past, to fulfill its political, patriotic function as proof of British excellence. Is it ultimately a bad thing? I mean, at least, if Oxford was to develop a vaccine for its country and the country's government, the UK government, was to use it on its own people long before everyone else in the world, is that an outright bad thing? I mean, at least they got out a vaccine in general, was able to cure some people. I mean, don't need to it would be great if they shared it with the rest of the world. Sure, I guess. But you don't need to be putting a stake in this fucking internationalist virtue signaling, dude. Or ma'am, excuse me, misgendered.
It's ma'am.
The story will be clear. China, once again, has unleashed a threat to civilization. But the best brains of the UK have saved the world. Whilst I'm hopeful that I will be able to visit my dad soon, this must not overshadow the key lesson of coronavirus. International cooperation saves lives. The research community knows this. Let's hope our politicians do too. International cooperation, minus licking the boot of the Chinese Communist Party. Anyway, end of article. And so, what do you all have to say?
I think I've had enough for the rest of my life of people defending China, or as the president pronounces it, China. But anyway, it's China. And believe me, Dark Khan, if you've seen Joe Biden's ad, Joe Biden doesn't even know where he is. He could even think that he's in China with Kim Jong-un. And by the way, guys, what is Aleppo? But seriously,
no, you don't do a half bad Trump.
Thank you. I've been working on it a lot, so much that I have way too much fun with it. And keep in mind that I've had a few people look at me like, "How do you do that?" And I just said, "Get as nasally as possible, and then comb your hair in 13 different directions." And Mikhail the Stray Cat is a Chad and a patriot. And keep in mind that Mikhail is right. No more foreign interventionist wars unless we have the illegals fight our wars. And then fine, I will go full neocon, like I had done with striking Syria and sending 50 chocolate cakes to Iraq. It is the best chocolate cake you've ever seen. I have way too much fun with watching the Trump YTPs because sometimes it's like he would have actually said that. Like when I edited him to say he had talks with the Taliban.
But to quickly review, we gone talking about the Great Reversal. COVID-19 is undoing years of progress in curbing global poverty. Cuomo says it's shocking. Most new coronavirus hospitalizations are people who had been staying home. Colorado health officials claimed drunk man died of coronavirus when his blood alcohol content was 7 times the legal limit. And second coronavirus wave could be deadlier, CDC chief warns. I do not know if there's like anything that you want to give as far as commentaries on each one of those articles go, as I obviously already read them, but just was reading the title for recap.
I
mean, if you have nothing to say, that's cool too.
I really don't. I just the only thing I have to say about the coronavirus at this point is there are a few things I want people to have learned. I want the legacy of coronavirus to be better hygiene, but also people understanding that you can't rely on government for everything, and that anything that they give you, they can take away. So, well, it's also a point I make against judicial activism, to be fair.
Did you watch my entire response video to Foamy the Squirrel, by the way?
Yeah, I had to what was I going to say? I had to have a lot of caffeine with me in order not to like go into a rage because that fucking voice. Whoever did that can get the Rona. like have them just swim in a pool of coronavirus and we'll call it a night. For God's sake, that was so painful to hear.
And that's biggest reason as to why that I did a whole lot more the dark angel voice than normal, was to kind of balance out the high pitchedness, you know.
Yeah, and to make it sound like puberty is doing you any favors. I'm just kidding. I'm just joshing with you, but
right.
Okay. Damn, Trump's approval rating has taken a fucking hit in the last few days.
But basically, what I kind of the reason why I mentioned that video is because at the end of that video, I will say, like at the end of this stream as well, let it not be forgotten the bad precedent that was taken, or at least attempted to be taken, by governments, not just here in the United States, but across the world, as it's shown to put a hurt in the poverty rates of their countries, as poverty has risen and all that other jazz. What?
Did you watch Bering's video about governments and what they've done with how they handle coronavirus?
Governments in general, I don't know if I saw that, but I saw him like go and talking about of how his particular government, Australia.
I think that's the same video, yeah.
Maybe I would have to rewatch it, but basically there was like some drone camera or something that was stating, hey, you three on the roof there, you're under arrest, walk down the stairs and so forth.
I'd be flipping off the camera, because what are they going to do? Are they going to have Barack Obama be handling the drone and shooting me with the fucking... Okay, I just given them an idea, but you know what? Like, if there's a police drone just following you, just flip them off and just tell them that they can they can stick their batons where the sun don't shine. Also, thank you, Mikhail. I really try. I really make an effort. And believe me, I'm doing the hand signed a lot. That's how I sign everything, with the okay sign. That's why you can't read my hands. And keep in mind, DarkCon looks like he would be some emo twink, and he looks like he'd have a great time with Rational Outlaw. And now DarkCon looks like he's going to send me to hell.
Anyway, yeah, I'm going to teleport over to your house, burn you with a blue fire, and then drag your ass all the way down to hell and just leave you there to get your ass ripped by a demon.
Jesus, DarkCon. DarkCon has some very, very closeted fetishes, but you know what? We don't judge. It's 2020.
It's not a fetish. It's a punishment. It's not a fetish for me. It's a punishment for you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what DarkCon
does. My boyfriend.
The ladies of the night he sees.
What are you saying, Rash?
I was saying my boyfriend doesn't take it as a punishment.
Fair enough. But anyway, so do you two have anything to say before we go off air now?
No, other than This year, each month is a round. So we're on the 5th round of 2020, us versus the coronavirus. Round 6 is in a few days, and
Well,
I'm tired from that.
Argue that it's round 4 or even 3 if you want to start at March, anyways. For us here in the U.S., anyways.
Well, I was also, I guess, including the fact we started off the year with talks of potential war with Iran, and the coronavirus getting worse from February, and then getting to the point of lockdowns in March and abuses of power. And did they pass the most recent stimulus bill? It's like $3 trillion in spending, and I think they passed the House and the Senate was going to kill it. And if it passed the Senate, Trump was going to veto it. I'm gonna look that up, but
dear God,
I hope it,
because that's even worse of a bill than the last one.
Imagine all the pork in there already, because they gave $25 million to some musical institute that fired a ton of their workers, and it's like, what is wrong with these people? Okay, so the House passed
the institute itself, man. Not even to the workers of the musical institute.
Oh, for God's sake, Mitch McConnell has just said a few hours ago that Congress will probably have to pass another coronavirus stimulus bill. Democrats approved the $3 trillion rescue package earlier this month, but the Senate Republicans have no intention of passing it, thank God. But I can only imagine what Mitch McConnell is going to throw into that bill, because knowing the $1 trillion stimulus, there was already a lot of pork in there. A lot of riots. Imagine what they're going to do with $3 trillion.
2020 is a leap year, and we leaped right into some bullshit. Indeed, sent 1,000. I do want to say, by the way, that this month so far has been quiet as far as new news goes. I mean, there's still plenty more to come about with government overreach and Rona news, but other than that, it's been fairly quiet, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah,
my observation. But anyway, I think I'm going to end it right here. Got anything to say as we go up, folks? My co-host?
Nah.
Subscribe to my channel.
Oh, yeah, subscribe to mine too.
Chill. Particularly to Rational Outlaw, because he does that all the time. S-Man, you're good. You still have more times to do it. Rational Outlaw, you've ran out already on the amount of times that you can chill. You get no more. You get no more, damn it. Now, anyway, thank you all for watching this episode of Strike Force. I noticed that a whole lot weren't watching it from the beginning, but if you want to hear some wannabe edgelord dork try and ramble on and gather his memory about an Economist article talking about the poverty rates rising, well then, yeah, listen to the beginning of this stream. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Rational Outlaw and S-Man Speaks, for joining, my two co-hosts here. And we'll see you all later. God bless.